I went in to get help with a back pain. And so that's when I was written, again, another prescription for pain
So this
medication.
is the third time. You've been given opiates
Yes,
or
ma'am.
opioids for pain.
That's right. And so at that point was when I started to notice that my tolerance was building up and it wasn't doing the same effect to help get through the pain. But also, again, that's when the real misuse actually started.
Have you or someone you know been affected by mental health or substance use disorder? Well, you are not alone. Welcome to the podcast, Riverfront Talks, Substance Matters. I am Tiffany Moore, the coordinator for the Beaufort County 360 Behavioral Health Task Force. We're going to sit down and have some in-depth conversations with individuals who may have struggled themselves with mental health or substance use disorder, or perhaps know someone who has struggled. Either way, we're going to have some inspiration, motivation, and maybe even some tearjerkers. Welcome to the podcast, Riverfront Talks, Substance Matters. Welcome back, y'all. We're back downtown in Washington on this beautiful waterfront. We are on the rooftop of Mulberry House Restaurant. I have a special guest for you all today. Her name is Mrs. Katie Dew. Welcome, Katie.
Well, hello. Thank you guys for having me. I really do appreciate it.
Katie, you are a resident of Beaufort County. You want to give us a little bit of background about you and your upbringing?
Sure. Again, my name is Katie Dew, and I am 34 years old. I've been living in Beaufort County now for 5 years, and I'm just really excited to be here and give some insight on lived experience with substance abuse and misuse, and to let everybody know that it doesn't have a look, and substance disorders and addiction does not discriminate. And I'm just really excited to explain a little bit more about that with y'all.
Well, thank you for that. I really like that you started out with that, so we can go ahead and let everyone know one of the purposes of this podcast is to break the stigma related to substance use, substance misuse, opioid use disorder, co-occurring disorders, all of the above. Katie, let's learn a little about your family life. You talked about substance use does not have a look. That we know there are stereotypes around substance use disorder, people who use substances. So just to kind of ease into the conversation, let us know how you were raised.
Okay, well, I was actually raised in a Christian home with both of my parents, and I have a younger brother, and I was born in Norfolk, and we lived there until my dad was moved to Kentucky, and lived there until I was in high school, and we returned back to Hampton Roads area, and again, raised in the church, not just my parents together, but my grandparents, aunts and uncles, very close family. We went on vacations. I mean, I'm very grateful to say that my brother and I, we never went without. If anything, we probably had an abundance of things and just love and support from all angles of our family. So I'm very grateful for that.
Yeah, it sounds like you had a really positive home life, a good upbringing, nothing that would play into the stereotypes that people have in their minds about people who use substances. So we're going to jump from your background, your familial background, to when you were first introduced to substances.
Okay. Well, when I was in high school, I had a car accident where I broke my ankle, and that was my first time being introduced to opioids. And I remember being prescribed them and taking them, but it wasn't like I was getting high or, there was no effect other than my ankle was broken and I needed that. So that was my very first experience with it. And then I graduated high school. And then when I was about 19 or 20, I had some thyroid issues and what's called a thyroid storm. And basically, my hormones made my body hurt, and it was to the point of I could not like function. I literally could not stand a shower. I couldn't drive. It was really terrible. So I went for medical help, and at that point, again, this was before the actual, opioid epidemic. And so I was prescribed handfuls of pills, including I was prescribed Percocet, Valium, methadone, and Klonopin all at one time, which, as you guys know now, that's unheard of and not safe.
No.
But to hand that to a 20-year-old, again, I needed that medication to just get through my day. And at that point, I actually remember one time with my mother, we were having a conversation, we were fishing. We were outside at the pier, and I remember telling my mom, we were talking about how people abuse pain medication. And I remember vividly thinking, there's no way I understand why people do that. Or how could they get to that point to take more than what they're supposed to? That just I could not comprehend it. I was like, why would anybody do that? So I love to tell that story because, again, it doesn't discriminate, and it does what I call the dirty trick on you, and it can happen to any of us.
Well, I'm sure a lot of our viewers out there who do not personally have experience with substance use disorder, doesn't have a family member or loved one who is suffering from the disorder, actually has thought the same. Again, that is one of the focal points of this podcast. We want to bring the real life experiences of how some people were addicted to substances. At some point, you got to a point where I guess your tolerance probably went up just because you had a significant amount of pills that you were taking each day. How many pills on average were you taking?
At that point, it was so overwhelming. I literally had to have a calendar, and I had to write down. So it was probably at least 20 to 30 pills a day, just that they prescribed to me at that point.
At what point did you realize that, your tolerance was increasing, you were getting a little bit more comfortable taking those high doses of medicine daily?
So, luckily, I can say at that point when I was prescribed all that, I did eventually get taken off of it. But that was, again, when I was 19 or 20. So fast forward to a few years later, I'd say about 24. So we're talking 2012. Again, I went in to get help with a back pain. And so that's when I was written, again, another prescription for pain
So this
medication.
is the third time you've been given opiates,
yes,
or
ma'am.
opioids for pain.
That's right. And so at that point was when I started to notice that my tolerance was building up and it wasn't doing the same effect to help get through the pain. But also, again, that's when the real misuse actually started. So with that being said, my prescription that I was getting was not enough. It was not enough to mask the pain, physical pain, but I also was starting to use it because I realized it emotionally numbs you too. So I was going through probably a prescription it started out within, coming up short a few days ahead of time. Then it would be a week ahead of time, to the point of it started to be, I would go through it within a week. And so that's when I really started to have a major problem.
And it was
opioids.
noticeable. It's personally something that you yourself understood was happening while it was progressing.
And I justified it because, again, it started with a prescription. And so at that point, I'm just going through a prescription. And so then that's where I say the dependence was real, because that's when, if I didn't have the medication after that week, I started to go into withdrawal. And that's where my mind completely did change, and I eventually started buying from the street.
Can you tell the people what withdrawal is? Can you explain what withdrawal symptoms you were experiencing?
So opioid withdrawal, first off, is something that I would never wish on anyone. And until you experience that, you really have no idea. And myself included, like I had said previously, there was no way. I was like, I don't understand how people or why anyone would want to do this or that. And then fast forward, here I am in this moment. I'm going through withdrawal. So with the withdrawal, for me, it was sweating. It was a pain it's in your body. It's like an ache that you just can never shake off, no matter what you do, no matter how many over-the-counter medications you try to take to help get through it. It was irritability, depression. All I wanted to do was sleep it off and just pray that I could come up with something at some point so that I would not continue to be in withdrawal, because just a few hours without a pain medication, you're in withdrawal. And so with opioids, your body don't know the difference if it's heroin or if it's a pain pill. And so again, I kept justifying, well, it's just pain pills. It's just pills, but in all reality I was an addict at that point. And I was still in denial, and it was really scary.
Did you have any other friends or associates that you knew who had gone through withdrawal or who had the similar experiences yourself from that transition of taking your prescriptions appropriately to going to substance misuse and actually experiencing those symptoms you had? Because I've heard different things about withdrawal.
Right.
Some people have diarrhea, some people have vomiting, some people have really serious headaches and cramping. So do you know anyone else that has experienced withdrawal? Or
Absolutely. I had many, I'm not going to say many, but I had a few friends and close people that I did know that had it a lot worse than I did. And I think that is exactly the reason why I continued to buy off the street or to abuse, because I didn't want to get to that point. Now, I will say for me, there were a few, I want to say less than maybe 5 times that I can think of that I was in throwing up or having diarrhea and all those things. But I remember a friend of mine, and I remember vividly watching that person go through that, and that there was enough for me to continue the misuse out of fear of having to either admit that I had a problem and go and get help, or to get to that point. I was so terrified of withdrawal, like
of how it would feel.
Yes. So, and I knew that if I had gone only, the most I could do maybe was 12 hours without really getting sick.
Well, it sounds like somewhere throughout this journey that you would think about maybe not using, but the fear is what continued your usage.
Yes, ma'am. So, at the very end of when I was in my worst and my addiction, I thought about it for months, many months. But at that moment, I did not have health insurance. I guess you could say I was a functioning addict.
Define that for me.
So many people really did not know how bad it had gotten, because I was able to work to pay for my pills, to be able to work to pay for my pills.
So it was a cycle.
It was a vicious cycle, and it was just horrific.
Let me ask, because I think you're getting ready to jump on me. Okay, so when you got to the point where you were no longer prescribed these medications and you still had this craving to take these medications or similar medications, um, how did you find medicine? Let's go to that part of it too.
Okay. Again, I did know a few people who also were misusing and buying pills. So I went through that. Or if I had maybe friends that had old prescriptions, I would find a way to ask for it. But I guess my dealer was a person that I I knew through a work situation, and that's how I got in contact with that person.
So the people you were getting it from at this point off the street, your friends, your associates, did they realize that you were finding ways to ask them for their prescription medicine, or did you open up to them about it like right away?
No, absolutely not. Not right away. Again, I did a lot of that in secret, and even would lie to my family members about where I was going to go and do that. I was living in Virginia at the time, and I even knew contacts 2 hours away, and I would drive 2.5 hours sometimes just to go get pills so that I knew that I wouldn't get sick. And it was really that bad. And when I say that bad, I'm talking, I could easily take like a close to 100 milligrams of Percocet and talk to you just like I am right now and function. Or at least what I considered was functioning, which was not functioning looking back now. But again, while you're in addiction, you justify things for yourself. And because I knew that I didn't necessarily look like what everyone else thinks is an addict or what should an addict look like, I was golden. I knew that I could get away with things. I mean, and so again, that justification, it will turn you into someone you absolutely do not ever think that you could be or would ever want anyone to think that you were. And that, for me, to admit that was something that I had to really come to terms with. And it wasn't until I had my aha moment of clarity that truly made me open up and be as honest as I am now.
So your family, no one around you that was close, intimate, personal, that at first they didn't know?
Not at first. I'm sure my mom, she definitely knew.
Oh, moms know.
My mom knew. But again, I don't think she necessarily knew how bad it was and how much I was suffering on the inside, because that was the worst part of it all. Is from the moment I opened my eyes until the moment I closed my eyes, it was all about, where am I going to get pills? How am I going to do this? It's like being a prisoner in your own mind, and you sit there and you lay there and you don't want it. You want to think of anything else, but that's all you can think of. Like, literally, that is all you can think of. I say all the time, over and over, I just don't wish that on anyone.
No. It sounds like a horrible experience. Thankfully, you lived through it. You talk about your aha moment, and I'm not sure what my time is, so hopefully I'm not moving too fast. But you had an aha moment. Can you kind of tell us, going from where you were driving 2 hours to get medication, so no one in your immediate community knew that you were addicted to medicines, to where you got to a point where you said, oh, this is enough. Like, I've come to a breaking point where I need to do something different.
Well, for me, it was April. I remember the exact date. It was April 3rd, 2018. And one of my very best friends had a paint night for her birthday. And I love when I tell the story. So I was very upset because we had to pay for our own paint night, and that was $30. And I was upset, y'all. That was 3 pills at least that I knew I was not going to have for the night, and I was not wanting to do it. I was upset. But when we went to that paint night, I had probably one of the best times of my life. And we painted a mermaid, and I made my mermaid a big girl mermaid. And I remember walking out of there, and it was 3 hours that I did not think about pills. It was 3 hours that I had fun with my friends, and I wasn't trapped. And I wanted more. I wanted it so bad. That was it. So
That was peace.
it was literally something I had not felt in years. And so that entire next week, I looked into treatment area, but again, I did not have insurance. I didn't know anything about help. I had no clue that there was this whole entire world willing to help people without insurance, with anything that you have going on. I had no idea. And so I was hesitant to do it. I was worried who's going to take care of my daughter. I'm going to have to tell my family. I'm going to have to open up about this stuff. So
Take you back.
Okay.
Got two aha moments. One was the painting,
Right.
You were on the verge at one point of thinking of even going further into your substance use journey, and you stopped yourself, thankfully.
I did. Yes, ma'am.
You want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yes. And so, like, after that paint night, I continued to still misuse. And then one morning, I woke up, I was out of my pain medication that was prescribed to me. I had no contacts, I had no nothing, and I was in withdrawal. And I was in the beginning of it. I knew it was coming. I knew it was going to be terrible. And so at that moment, I said to myself in my own head, well, I could probably call so-and-so and get a bag of heroin. And I knew that it was cheaper and it would make me not be sick. And I knew it would take care of all my problems. But with that being said, at that very moment, I knew that if I had turned to heroin...
intervention.
Absolutely. That it would have been the love of my life. And heroin, and I would have been dead. I know for a fact that eventually heroin would kill me. So I knew at that very moment I had to do something. I knew I did. And so I did. That very morning I woke up and I went to my mom and I let her know everything. I confessed everything. That I needed help. I surrendered it over. I remember praying out, okay, God, this is it. If it's meant to be for me to get better, then you'll make a way. And he sure did.
He did, and we're thankful for that. Now, I want you to tell us how, because you said you didn't have insurance or anything like that. You were kind of scared to seek help.
Yes.
Because, you may get a lot of no's.
I was terrified. So what I did was, again, I told my mom, and we called around. And there's an area in Chesapeake that they let me come in. They did a look over, and the man, I remember sitting there just as we are right now, and he picked up the phone and called Virginia Beach Psychiatric Center, which in their basement they have a detox center. And he asked if they had a bed for a woman. And at that moment, I'm thinking, I have no money. I don't know where you think who's going to pay for this or what. Like, I had no insurance, no nothing. And I'm thinking, going into this, that I may be able to qualify for a methadone clinic, or, and I'm navigating in my head. That means you got to go every day. Again, I'm coming up with all these reasons to not get help. But when he made that phone call and they had a bed, he said, well, when can you get there? And I was like, I guess now. So he gave me a little bit of time to go and gather my few things that I was able to take in there, and they accepted me, and I did 9 days inpatient treatment there, and then I did a 6-day outpatient treatment while still in Virginia, and that was right before I moved here to Beaufort County, and May 3rd, I think it was, when we moved in. That was a Friday afternoon. And my journey goes to, I went to Harvest Church on that Sunday, and I learned about Celebrate Recovery. And that is on Thursday nights at Harvest Church. And ever since then, I jumped right in, and here we are.
Yes, ma'am.
And God literally took care of the bill. That man, and there was scholarships and grants and stuff, and they took care of it for people like myself. And that's why I am so passionate about letting other people know that, hey, there is help out there. You don't have to suffer in silence. You know, when I was in my inpatient treatment at the psychiatric center, I'm sitting next to lawyers. I'm sitting next to 80-year-old grandmothers. And I remember looking around the room thinking, this is crazy. Like, who would have thought that all these different types of people are going to be here? It didn't matter what shape, size, color, your background. I mean, we were all different, and it was just amazing to see that we could all come together and actually get help. And so I want everyone to know that there is help out there.
Yeah, and like you said, struggles, substance use disorder, it does not have a look. So anyone is susceptible to having that same experience that you had, starting that way, starting different ways, no matter how it starts. There's help. There are good people out here in the community. You are our second guest to talk about Celebrate Recovery. So obviously, Celebrate Recovery is doing wonderful things in this community, and we have a lot of people here that are thriving because of it. So thank you, Celebrate Recovery and Harvest Church. Now, Katie now. You're still with Celebrate Recovery. You are a member of the Behavioral Health Task Force. You get out and volunteer. Like, just tell us how good it feels.
It feels really good. You know, I'm very passionate about this. Like I said, it's life or death. There are other places in this area that you can go get inpatient and outpatient treatment. Again, I didn't mention that I did do some outpatient treatment while in Beaufort County. But absolutely, I am currently waiting to hear back from the peer support specialist. I'm waiting for my certification. I did all of that just, again, because I know that if everyone keeps quiet, no one will know. So we can't do anything with it, you know, if no one knows. So let's talk about it. Let's get out there and share our stories. There's no reason to be afraid of it. You may literally save someone's life just by mentioning, hey, I struggled with that at one time, and if you are struggling with that, that's okay too. You don't have to be ashamed of that. Let's break this, because otherwise it may be your cousin or your sister or your own child. And so I don't want people to sit around and be afraid, because you don't have to be. Let's break that stigma.
Yes. I love every bit of what you just said. We're getting ready to wrap it up. I do want to thank Katie for telling us about her journey, her new life, her purpose that she seems to have found, which is spreading the word about services and people who can help you to get to care and treatment, the importance of not only having inpatient treatment but continuing to have that treatment, the resources that are available in Beaufort County, and the need for peer support specialists.
Yes.
Because as you said, a lot of people don't realize you don't have to have insurance. You don't have to be turned away every time you go to a door and ask for care. Peer support specialists act to connect you to these resources. That's to let you know that these are things that are available to you. I've been there. I know for a fact these things are out here. So we want to thank you for your willingness to be a peer to others. We want to thank you for doing this podcast.
Well, thank you.
I do want to say, y'all, we are downtown Washington. We cannot help that downtown Washington is doing its thing because the weather's beautiful out here and it feels great. So we do have a little interference. Excuse us for that. But also, we want to thank Mulberry House Restaurant for being great hosts and allowing us to shoot our podcast here. Thank you to the Behavioral Health Task Force and everyone involved in this podcast. ECU, UNC Chapel Hill, ECU Health Beaufort Hospital, all of the people who are working in Beaufort County to actually try to help people who are suffering. So that's it, y'all. We're going to wrap it up. See you later. Thank you all for joining us for this episode of Riverfront Talks, Substance Matters. If you are from the Beaufort County area and know someone who is suffering from mental health and substance use disorder and may be looking for resources, my information is below in the description. We also would like your feedback to gather input about today's episode. Please also complete the short survey listed in the description. A special thank you to our sponsors, ECU Health Beaufort Hospital and KB Reynolds Charitable Trust. Like, share, and subscribe. See you later.